Well, welcome to the 2021 Star Sports Greyhound Derby preview. I'm really pleased to say that representing the blue, red and white corner, we've got Jonathan Kay from the Racing Post. Representing the orange, yellow and white corner, it's Mr. Smug himself, Ian Fortune, and your referee today is Martin Chapman from Star Sports, aka Lofty. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. The excitement certainly building now for the Derby. We're going to start by talking about the Irish contingent first, of which there are many and a good team, as I'm sure you will tell us, Ian. First six in the betting, you must be pretty happy with where you're sitting at the moment.
Yeah, obviously we're bringing over a very strong team. The big guns have lined up their stars, and by all accounts, we've been blessed in the sense we haven't lost too many from injury. Obviously the UK have lost one or two from injury, so yeah, we're looking very strong. Like, there's no question about it. The fact that Lofty's going to tell us later on that we're a stupidly short price to win the competition, but when you actually go through the runners, it's very hard to disagree with it. I know we have the top six, but there's arguments to suggest we probably should have the top eight. Like your lowest priced runner has had four starts. He's £85 and he's a wide seed. He's a shorter price than the likes of Ballymac Wild and Beach Avenue, The Machine, and Lenson Bocco, which to me probably doesn't sit quite right. So, whereas I'm saying I don't think we're certainties, I think we probably should have one or two more of the top 10. Does that make me sound completely smug, rubbing it in, or can you understand where I'm coming from? Is what I'm asking.
I can. Let's talk about the Buckley team first of all, because for me, he probably has the strongest team. Starting with the anti-pace favourite, Not the Ball Sid. He's a 14-1 chance at the moment. Absolutely brilliant he was in the Easter Cup from what was potentially a poor draw for him. And also DJ Sydney, last year's champion. He looks to have come back really well too.
Yeah, as we recorded this, I spoke to Pat only the last 24 hours, and he's looking to have 8 runners. Obviously, the two that you've mentioned are serious contenders. Knock the Bull Sid, I think he's a better greyhound than he was last year. I think he's certainly a stronger greyhound than he was last year. He did 28-26 in Limerick the other day for a 5-2-5 trial. His splits were equivalent of the likes of Doolin Duke and Dearjet Sydney, and he came home 2 lengths faster. That backs up the fact that I think he's a stronger greyhound this year. Dearjet Sydney has done nothing wrong. I think he'd be suited by the place. He's a good starter. He wants the fence. He ran a blinder in the Select Stakes recently. He's coming into the competition lovely and fresh. He trialled in 28-41. Doolin Duke is obviously there, 28-40. He won the plate last year and really took to Nottingham. Pat thinks an awful lot of him. Glengar Bale is coming back. And then he has 3 or 4 others, the likes of Bull Run Norris, Bombardier or Bombardier. Coombe Leo is a nice little dog he's got out of Tralee, he thinks a bit of, and Riaka Smasher. He's actually, as we're speaking, he's getting ready to race at Shelbourne Park tonight. Be interesting to see how he comes on. He's likely race, but open to plenty of improvement. He's a very, very strong team, no question about it. But if you had to pick one out of the stable, it would be Knock the Bull Sid, but Dearjet Sydney a very close second. As you said, if I had to choose any of the Irish teams, his team was probably the one I'd choose.
We saw some of the Holland dogs in action as well at Towcester the other night. New in Session finished second behind Highlights Arkle, and Native Maestro was in action. And for me, he looks so comfortable at the track.
Yeah, Native Maestro was the first dog I backed of the Irish. Basically, he was the first dog I backed. I haven't backed an English dog yet. Native Maestro was the first dog I backed. Once Graham Box bought the dog, I knew he'd be going to Towcester. I thought he'd be made for the place. Again, this was when we were dealing with the old traps, and it looked very much like he needed an inside runner with early speed. That is Native Maestro. The track seems fairer now since the traps have been introduced, but he just seems to have everything. He ran very well the other night at Towcester, beat Droopy's Edition, who did turn a close second. He held him all the way to the line, so the 500 meters isn't a concern for Native Maestro. I think he has everything in his armory, but again, Graham has a strong team. He has New In Session, who's probably more early paced than we thought in the early stages of his career. He probably does need to be in front. A little bit disappointed the other night, but you can make excuses for that. Lenson Bocco is the interesting runner, of course, an Irish Derby winner. Probably missed much of last year in the sense where he wasn't quite the dog he had been the previous year, but all signs suggest that there is life in the old dog yet. Trialled very well. He then has the likes of Gate Time Milo, Kameko, Sweep the Yard, and Golden Tiger. Golden Tiger is an interesting one. I thought he could make into a nice Towcester dog. The one there that really catches my eye, though, is Romeo Magico. I think he's a hell of a greyhound. He is a bit lightly raced and a bit excitable, as Graham describes him. He'll come on. He's young and he's not quite the finished article, but have no doubt he is the engine. And he's a dog I'll be keeping an eye on the first round or two.
Jonathan Kay, that's just two trainers' teams we've mentioned. A bit of a force to be reckoned with the Irish this year.
Well, they are, and I'm afraid Ian's rather stolen my thunder a little bit. I mean, I cannot understand why Native Maestro is not clear favourite. I can't understand why he's bigger in the betting than New In Session. That doesn't make any sense to me. He's looked to me an ideal Derby greyhound, wherever it was going to be in England, to be fair. But his run on Tuesday did not do anything to dissuade from that. The form is top class. And, you know, for me, he is by comfortably of the Graham Holland greyhounds, the one I'd want to be on. I'm not saying there are others that can't come out and improve, but at the moment where we stand, he's a lightly raced greyhound who doesn't really know what defeat is. He's only suffered 2 or 3 defeats in his career. And for me, he's just a greyhound who ticks every single box. So I'm very much in his camp. But everywhere you look on the Irish side, there is absolute strength in depth. And it is a formidable team. And you know, just doing a rough and ready calculation, you've got the leading trainers coming over. You're probably accounting for up to 30 greyhounds from them, but there'll be others as well. So you could be looking at pushing a 40-strong contingent, and that is going to be a pretty awesome prospect, and one that the home defence is going to really struggle against.
Well, congratulations to Lofty for making it just the top 6 in the betting for the Irish. I know you've been working hard at keeping us in there. But do you take Jonathan Kay's point about the price of Native Maestro and Ian's point as well about they could have more than 6 in the top?
I think, as they said, over the winter, Native Maestro was seen as, in the old Towcester, as Ian has alluded to, as being the ideal dog for Towcester that the Irish are going to send over. Funny enough, he was a dog we first laid at big price, and we laid him at 50-1. So he's been the best back. Probably that's the reason why he's not actually favoured at the moment. I thought Knock the Ball Sid would definitely start anti-post favourite. I know JK thought differently there. He just seems safe. Ideally, more would be suited by Towcester. As again, as Ian said, looks a much stronger dog this year from what he did last year. You know, last year I think a few Shrewdies bet him to be top sectional, and that's what he was showing at Nottingham by smashing out and showing the early pace of the corner. And obviously he got bogged down in that night when the guy the track was virtually unraceable, and then he went out that evening. But to me, no, I think like he looks the full dog this year. The only thing I'm going to be slightly concerned with the Pat Buckley dogs, they're coming over quite late. So I think a lot of them might be a little bit vulnerable in some of the early rounds. There could be a couple you're looking forward to think, oh, they might just finish sort of third there. I know third would be good enough for them, but where Graham's bought a few dogs over early doors for the trial sessions and stuff like that, and he's seen some trial stakes with them, maybe some of Pat's dogs. I know they're going to be fit and well because they've been trialling around Limerick again, as Ian said, and they're running around there. But no, possibilities that they might be vulnerable in the early round. That's probably the one time I think we've got a chance of catching them out.
Well, and also remember, Pat Buckley is going to be staying. Once he comes over next week, he will be staying for the duration. So that's taken into account as well. Whereas I think perhaps Holland will be coming and going a little bit. Ian, we've also got Night Tornado in the top 6.
Yeah, very talented greyhound. He was lightly raced last year. He was only a pup. He did a massive run the semi-finals of a juvenile derby. Didn't get the kick in the final, but he does look a greyhound that, if he progresses, if he sharpens up in terms of experience, he's going to be very hard to beat. Never mind keep out of the frame. He's 27.88 around Shelbourne Park. He's just the most beautiful, fluent mover. He probably does want the fence, but he has exceptional pace, and the fact that Larry Dunn is bringing him over, you know, Larry is as shrewd a man as there is in world greyhound racing with a greyhound. It'd be very interesting to see how he goes. And we haven't even mentioned, you know, the likes of Liam Dowling, Paul Hennessy, who's bidding to become the first trainer to win a derby at 3 different venues. Has Beach Avenue and, of course, Price's Jet, who sort of sprung a bit of surprise by breaking the track record last week. Of course, it's been beaten since, but there are plenty of other Irish dogs that we have to give mention to. But as you said, Night Tornado is certainly one that would be high on my list. When I found out that he was coming, when I first saw his name on that try list, I had to have a few quid each way, because if it clicks for him, he could go very well. He's one of our more vulnerable dogs coming into the competition because he's lightly raced. He hasn't raced in quite some time. If he did miss the kick, he probably is a short-ish runner. He'll get home if he's in front. If he's not in front, he could find himself in a spot of bother. That's where he's maybe a dog you could watch run in the first round or in a trial stake and then make up your own mind.
I wanted to mention Domachine as well, because of course he was a finalist in our Puppy Derby at Towcester, so he has experience around the track, which is going to play into his paws.
Yeah, plus the fact that he definitely seems to be far closer to the finished article than he was when he was running in that Puppy Derby. The pace he was showing in the Kirby was astonishing. From the second bend, he was showing 27.70 pace, which, you know, that's just phenomenal. Like, he's picking up dogs that are doing 28.10s, and he's coming from 7 or 8 lengths behind them. He's just an incredibly fast greyhound. There was one or two little things said about him in the early rounds, but I think he proved in the final that he's very capable of racing and beating the very best. He was desperately lucky not to get there, and Damien Matthews and obviously his father, Brendan Matthews, you know, they are greyhound men to the core. If you actually get a chance to see this dog up close, I can promise you'll see your face in his coat, because they will just look $1 million. The dog will be given every possible opportunity. Another one to mention from the Matthews kennel is Unlock. She's very lightly raced. She's had a litter of pups, but she was devastatingly fast. She's the sister of Kudavani Chick, who was a finalist last year. She trialled reasonably well the other night. If she came back to something like her best, she's just the type that could keep qualifying. She's extremely strong and very fast.
We're going down the best thing a little bit there yet, but for you, Lofty and JK, any others that you want to give a mention to of the Irish that you fear?
No, I think the ones I mentioned, Tornado was one of those dogs that I just put in the betting last year when I just redid the betting after Nottingham last year. I thought I'll put some dogs in the betting. So I was going through the juvenile form there from Ireland and the juvenile derby, and just put Night Tornado in at 40. He sat there unloved all the time, and then suddenly, as Ian said, he appeared on the trial sheet, and it was bang, bang, bang. The whole world wanted to be on him. So he's certainly been well punted down there. We've mentioned a few of them. We've mentioned Lenson Bocco after his trial night. Not mentioned Great Name now. I think he's available at like sort of 66 to 1 in a couple of places. For a dog of his ability, I mean, he's Easter Cup finalist last year. That's an insult, isn't it? Really? I mean, I'm not. There's me tub thumping the Irish. I've bet 2 dogs to the derby so far. One that JK mentioned to me off air earlier on that they come on to for the English side. You've got a chance to win him. And Great Name now. I thought for a dog of his abilities, say 66 to 1 was an absolute insult.
JK,
I think that's the problem, Jules, that when you look at the Irish, however far down you go, that they've got such strength in depth. And I think the home side, I think there will be greyhounds that come through without a shadow of a doubt. We'll talk about them a little bit later on. But the real quality that they have, the machine, to me, is going to be so hard to knock out, given any sort of a run around the opening bend. And now that the traps have been changed, the track does look inherently fairer, and you'd be more encouraged in that regard. I think, Great Name that. I mean, his form stacks up, and Night Tornado's in my 10 to follow, so I'm hardly going to desert him. You know, I mean, everywhere you go, there is real quality. It's like Manchester City bringing their squad over, and at the moment we're in the Championship.
Please don't say that, because the gauntlet has been laid, and in the next part of this preview, JK, you will be telling us why the English are going to win the 2021 Star Sports Derby.